This is your guide to finding percentages of amounts without using a calculator. There are certain percentages that you need to be able to work out quite quickly by doing some simple calculations. Here are a few of them. So to start off with 50%. In order to find 50% of a number, you need to find half of that number. So 50% of 200 is 100. 25%, you could either think about this as a quarter of a number, or you could half it and half again. Either way, you're going to come out with the same number. So half of 48 is 24, half of 24 is 12, so 25%, 48 is 12. For 5%, easiest way of doing that is to start off by finding 10%. Well, 10% of number we divide by 10. So 10% of 60 would be 6. So to find 5%, we then just half that. Half of 10% is 5%, and half of 6 is 3. For 30%, we're going to use a similar idea of chunking. First thing we would find is 10%. So again, to find 10%, we'll divide the number by 10. 210 divided by 10 is 21. To find 30% using this, we want 3 lots of the 10%. So 3 lots of 21 is 63. The next chunk of questions are a little bit trickier. So we're going to break it down into little parts that we can then add together to find each of the following percentages. So there's a number of ways of doing each one. Sometimes it's quicker to do one way than another. It's a personal preference. So for 6%, first thing I would do is find 10% of 120, and that's 12. I've just divided by 10 to get my 10%. My next step is then to find 5%. 5% is just half of the 10%, so half of 12 is 6. I'm then going to find 1%. Now if you ignore this middle step, to go from 10% to 1%, we would again have to divide by 10 to give me 1.2. 12 divided by 10, 1.2. To find my 6% then, I'm simply going to add together the 5% and the 1%. So adding together 6 and 1.2 gives me 7.2. For the next question, 32%, I'm going to again break it down into easier parts. So step number 1, 10%. 10% of 600, so 600 divided by 10 is 60. I want 32%, so if I do 3 lots of the 10%, it gives me 30%. So 3 lots of 60 is 180. Moving on to the 2% part now, where if I break this down again, 1%, with 10% is 60, 1% would be 6. I just have to divide the 10% by 10. I want 2%, 1% is 6, so 2% is double that, so 12. So in total, to find the 32%, we add together the 30% and the 2%, so adding together 180 and 12 gives me 192. The final question is 17.5%. Not one that you often see nowadays due to a change in VAT, but still one that is useful and shows a good example of this chunking method. 10% of of 240 is 24. If we then find 5%, so half of the 10% gives us 12. If you then notice, half of 5% is 2.5%. So again, half of 12 is 6. These three parts that we've worked out now, added together, so 10, 5 and 2.5, add together to make 17.5%. So we're going to add all three of these bits together to give us 42. So 24 plus 12 plus 6 is 42.